What is self-management? Let me start by saying I'm very happy that you chose this course, because although how you manage your daily tasks seems to be a very ordinary and simple topic, these things actually determine the course of your career and your life. Here is a list of examples of important self-management skills. All these skills will be touched throughout this course, but need years to develop and can always be improved. These are the areas where only you have superpowers, where you can take control and nobody else. Good self-management starts with understanding where you have control and take it. This is your area of power. Today we will start with discussing the first three: self-awareness, self-care and emotional intelligence. They form the fundaments of good self-management. The word self-management already contains a lot of information. The word self means that you are the topic of this course. Normally we manage other things. We are directed towards a project or a little assignment. And now we are the topic. So we put our attention light on ourselves. We all have to figure that thing out ourselves. We are all responsible for doing the work for ourselves. But as we are all doing that, you can say we are all colleagues. We are all self-managers. So it's a lifelong quest to figure out your recipe and your direction in life. But we're in it together, so we can share our experiences and learnings. Good management requires a few essential things that we can also apply to self-management. Good management means that you appreciate your team. In this case, it means that we are compassionate towards ourselves, that we are supportive and respectful towards ourselves throughout the process. Good management also means that you provide the necessary resources to your team. In this case, you need to take care of the necessary resources for yourself. That means good self-care. Did you get enough rest? Did you eat a proper healthy diet so you have energy? Also, good listening is part of good management. In this case, can you check in with yourself? Can you apply good listening to yourself? Can you see and hear what you need and what is going on? Then we also need good decision-making in good management. In this case, can you move from automatic pilot behavior to conscious choice? Can you make a conscious decision? And last but not least, good leadership means that you are good at delegating tasks. In this case, can you take charge of your time, have good time management, and have realistic expectations? So we are applying all these principles of good management to ourselves throughout this course. Meaning we need to take responsibility, full responsibility for ourselves, for the way we think, for the way we feel, for the way we react to situations. How do you react to a train delay, for example? How do you react to a lockdown, as we are in today? See, life is happening to us. We cannot control everything, but we control our response. So can you take the responsibility for your own response? How will you respond to meeting new people in university next week when you meet your tutorial group? How do you respond to not getting any reply from any of your friends when you texted them all? How do you respond to anxiety or stress? These are all questions that we need to ask ourselves, like how do we actually operate? In this course, you will spend time and attention on getting to know yourself better. Good self-management means that you need to know who you are. You need to understand what you are doing, how you do things. And also, by knowing yourself better, you will be able to find the rhythm, the environment, the routine, the things to do that really suit you. And when you do all that, you take good care of yourself, you take that responsibility, you know where to go, you will be the best version of yourself. And that's what we're aiming for in this self-management course. Now, to get to know yourself better, it takes time and attention. It's not easy to see yourself because we are always happening. We are always live. So to see ourselves better, we need to actively stop. We need to actively interrupt the routine of things. So it's important to understand that the way you do your day, even the smallest little things, and the way you think throughout the day, the way you react, it all happens in patterns, in routines, in repetitions. And these patterns are historically grown. You didn't just fall from the sky today. You have a history. And throughout your personal history, you adjusted to situations, you reacted to things that happened to you, and you developed habits, you developed a way of doing. It's partly shaped by your upbringing, by your experiences, but also by chance. I have the habit, for example, to start walking around in my house while I brush my teeth, which doesn't make any sense, and I have no clue when I started that, but it's something that I do automatically. I find myself with my toothbrush in my mouth doing the dishes or doing completely other things. It's ridiculous. So, you know, the way we are today, what we do, it's not always a result of master thinking or great decision making. We just happen to be who we are today. But it's important to see it's an historically grown version of yourself. Now, these patterns are very powerful. They start to happen automatically, which means without thinking. So by repeating certain behaviors many times, you develop fast lanes in your brain that become very smooth. So it's very easy to keep doing what you did. This means that while we grow older, these old patterns come with us, even though they may not suit us anymore. So if we want to refresh ourselves, if we want to renew ourselves, we need to basically update these old patterns. So we can adjust them to the person we are today and the person that we want to be tomorrow. Because in the end, it's all these little decisions in a day that make your future. So it's important to realize that we have a lot of automatic behavior. We make about 35,000 decisions in a day, of which only 0.26% are conscious decisions. So we are mainly automatic pilots, reacting without thinking. What we want is to break that stream of behavior by interrupting. You need to take a break, you need to pause. See, between a stimulus, a trigger, and your response, there is a space. And in that space lies your freedom to choose. And that's where your power is. This is not my invention. This is by Viktor Frankl, who made this quote, who survived a Holocaust. He noticed that people responded very differently to the same horrible situation. And that got him thinking, like we always have a choice. We have a choice, our freedom lies in how we respond to things. So if we want to investigate or explore how we can respond differently than automatically, we need to pause and observe. We need to wait. You need to stretch up that time between something that happens and how you respond to it. And the moment you see a crisis or a problem as an opportunity, you will experience a great advantage, a more positive and constructive way of responding. In this course, we will focus on a few of the basics of self-management. And one fundamentally important area is self-care. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do. We all need to figure this out for ourselves. We all have a different body and a different recipe. But we all share our human nature. And although we seem to forget that we are also a type of animal, we are. And we have a care recipe that is applicable to all of us. I don't know if you had a pet when you were younger, or now, but if you have a cat, you have a completely different care recipe than a dog. The cat doesn't want to go out for a walk. He'll get stressed. And the dog gets stressed if he doesn't. So, there are all these different rules for different animals. And the human animal needs 3 things grandly. I wanted to make a top 3, but I couldn't make a hierarchy because they are equally important. We need enough sleep and rest. We need a healthy, varied diet. And we need movement. And these 3 are equally important for our well-being. We get vicious and monstrous if we don't get enough sleep, even depressed and suicidal. We start to feel really bad if we don't eat enough proteins and vitamins and fibers. You know that the hormone serotonin, which is responsible for our mood and for our motivation, our sex drive, is actually, resides in your belly, in your bowels. And when you eat a very varied, healthy diet, it makes a lot of extra serotonin, so you feel happier, you feel better. And we are also designed for soft, continuous movement. Don't forget that we were hunters and gatherers not so very long ago. If you look at how long humans exist, and you would represent that in a year, we were hunters and gatherers until the 18th of December. All right? So we are mainly that, evolutionary. And they were moving all the time. They were looking for food, crawling over stones, climbing trees, always on the way. So soft, continuous movement keeps our brain alert, keeps our brain vital, our muscles, our blood circulation, everything. So think of walking, think of dancing, easy, without any big goal, no speed, just movement. So if you look at these 3 areas, your sleep and rest, your diet and movement, what can you improve in your daily routine? What is missing? Because it's these things that already make up for such a large part of your energy, your motivation, feeling powerful, good thinking, sharp thinking. They are the foundation of our well-being, and therefore very important to give attention to. Then we are not only a body, we also have a mind, and the human mind is a special one. It's very active, it's very impressive, and very challenging. Evolutionary, we are burdened with a few errors, you could say, things that don't work so well. We are, for example, really bad at distinguishing an imagined danger from an instant threat. We can imagine problems that are not really there, not concretely in front of us, and yet we get worried, we imagine them, and get a stress reaction, even though we are completely safe. We tend to think that other people think like us, which is really not the case. We make rather poor interpretations because we have an interpretation bias. Everything that happens to us, we fit it into our own minds, our own little perspective. So we integrate what happens in our own little vision. We get wildly worried, even when we are more safe than ever. Never ever have we been so safe as today, yet we are still so worried. We are quite bad at thinking, actually, cannot really focus on what is really important and what is not important, and we long for distraction, which today, with all the mass media and screens everywhere, goes a little bit crazy. We can have unrealistic measures and expectations. For example, perfectionism is an abstract concept that exists in our culture and in our minds, but doesn't really exist in itself. Nature doesn't do perfection. You cannot see it. I cannot show you perfection. This is what it is. Yet we hold it as a measure. You know that originally perfectionism was a measure that was applied to the arts, when artists tried to make statues of the gods that of course were perfect, perfectly shaped. So we are now applying the same measure to us messy human beings who are always, searching, and we are vulnerable, and we are, messy. Another unrealistic expectation is that we are always happy. There's little in our nature that is actually interested in being satisfied or being happy, yet we long for it. So we seem to be able to fight reality. We apply abstract measures to a messy reality. So the area of the mind is a tricky one because it's unlimited. There's a lot of imagination that we have, a lot of bad thinking, and also in our minds we think in patterns. Also our thinking is historically grown. And to break these habits we need to pause and observe and do reality checks. That's very important. Good self-care in the land of the mind means doing reality checks. So you pause, you observe your thoughts, and you ask yourself the question, is it really true what I'm thinking? Can I absolutely know that this is true? How does what I think make me feel? How does my thinking shape my behavior and my reality? We need to put the attention spotlight on the mind itself. It's a lifelong quest. It's not easy, but it's extremely beneficial. It's important that we take power there so that we become the boss of our own mind and not the slaves of our own thinking. Last but not least, we have the body, we have the mind, we also have emotions, very typical for human beings. And that's an interesting area because it's where physical sensations meet stories of the mind. Because if you look at a naked emotion, it's a physical experience. You feel it in your body. And then we give it meaning, we give it a story, we give it an explanation. There are many triggers that can activate emotions, both mental, physical, and external. And emotions have the nature to come and go. They're really reactions to stimuli. And they never stay forever. They have a wavy nature. They come and go. Now it's important to understand that you cannot control having emotions or not. They happen. You are triggered. They are triggered beyond your choosing. What you do control is your reaction to your emotion. That's where your power lies. It's important that we take responsibility for our own feelings. Very often when we are triggered by something that a friend had said, we get upset with the friend for saying something that made us feel bad, for example. In good self-care, you take responsibility for your own trigger. You are triggered by something, and your trigger is yours. The emotion is yours. It happened to you. Life happened to you. Things happened to you. What are you going to do about it? How will you respond to it? How will you take care of yourself? It always ends with, how will you take care of you? So, emotional intelligent reaction would be to study the emotion and recognize that you have it. That's where it all starts. Then understand how it got triggered, understand the chain of cause and effect, like what happened here in this situation. Then label the emotion correctly, accurately. Express what happened to you. In the case with the friend, you can explain how you got triggered. And then finally, regulate the emotion. And with regulation, I mean, what can you do for yourself? What do you need right now? How can you make it better for you? This is taking responsibility, full responsibility for your own emotions. And it may still well be that this friend was really not nice and really not even a nice person in that moment, but that's not your responsibility. That person is responsible for him or herself, always. You are responsible for your self-care. What are you going to do for you? Having said all this about the human body, the human mind, our emotions, maybe you can see that being a human being is actually quite a stormy situation. And you are always happening. There's no break from you. So how do we get to know ourselves better? How do we observe? We need to pause. We need to become the eye of the storm. Because you see, I now describe it as 3 different areas, but actually they happen all at the same time, all the time. So we need to find calm, we need to find a break, a moment of stillness to observe what all is going on here. So in the next video, we will talk about ways how you can facilitate these breaks, how you can help yourself to pause and observe.